Well, Dunstan, tell us who you are and what do you do for life?
I'm the CEO of YSave. YSave is a saving and investment scheme that was started by the Young Workers Ministry within Watoto Church. Over the years, it has grown to accept other members of Watoto Church who are actively involved in ministry within the church.
Beautiful. Well, we've been going through a series of living a blessed life as a church. Last week, we talked about overcoming debt and poverty. And most people have been challenged to get out of poverty because debt, because it cripples God's purpose for our lives. And now we're talking about growing wealth. And most people have become tithers or have been regular tithers. But there probably could be somebody who thinks they just tithe and they go to the bank account and they find something has already increased. How can a person grow wealth?
Now, if one has to grow wealth, the step number one is that he or she must be consistent in saving, because those savings are the ones that the person is going to use for growing the wealth that they have. And number two, people must know that if you are going to grow wealth, it's something that has a long-term view, not a short-term view. Right. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verse 1 that cast your bread upon the waters, for after many days you'll find it again. The Bible is talking about the length of period in which we are able to get back our investments. But also people must understand that if we are going to grow our wealth, there must be hard work.
Wow.
The Bible has said that God will bless the work of our hands. It's like a farmer, when you go out to sow, when you put your seeds in the ground, there's still a lot of hard work that you have to put in before the plants finally come out. So as far as investments are concerned, there's a lot of hard work that is involved.
Oh, that's beautiful. And we live in a society, a country where loans are being talked about everywhere. What is the place of loans in growing wealth?
Now, no person should ever start a business on borrowed money. If you're ever going to start a business, or if you're ever going to get into investments, you must use your savings. Because what will happen is that over 90% of the businesses that are started fail. And so if you've borrowed money to start that business, you still have to pay back that loan. Whereas if you've used your own savings to start that business, then if the business fails, it's your savings that you've lost, other than the bank or any other financial institution asking for their money back. Right. So what happens is that when you have your savings and you start the different investments and you are trying out the different areas and so on, when you finally mastered the business and you are seeing that the business is growing, then that becomes a time for you to be able to go and borrow money so that you inject into the business to make that business to be able to grow. So if you've been selling 3 crates of soda and then you suddenly realize that the demand for soda is more than what you can be able to supply, then you go and get a loan so that you increase on the number of crates of sodas that you have, so that the money that comes out of that investment is going to help you pay back the loan that you have.
That is powerful. Are there examples of people in YSave that have been able to benefit from the saving culture and probably supplementing the businesses with loans?
The list is endless.
Yes.
The example I always give is the very first person who took a loan from YSave.
Right.
The person who started the Victorious Primary School. She had her savings, she needed to grow her business, but she didn't have the money. Then she borrowed money and she grew the business. There are others, who have saved, carried out investments, and they've needed to expand their investments, then they've come and borrowed money so that they can be able to expand the different investments that they have from businesses, rental houses, and other business ventures.
How is that principle of loans and savings applicable to a person who wants to build themselves a residential house?
Well, the same thing happens, that if you want to build a residential house, the good practice would be for you to be able to save, first of all, to have the land. And after you have the land, then you begin to construct the houses during the different stages. And so when you get to that point where you now feel that you need to get into the house very quickly, maybe 2 or 3 months, then you borrow money, get into the house, and then what you would have been paying back as rent, you now begin to pay back towards the loan repayment, other than starting by taking off a loan right from the start of constructing a house.
Oh, that's very good. Now, lastly, budgeting. How can one budget?
Now, people must be able to understand that the principles of budgeting for an institution are the same principles of budgeting that an individual has to go through. Number one, people need to know that if you have a budget, it must be written down, because whatever gets written gets to be measured. Number two, find out what is your source of income. How much money are you bringing in? Number three, list down the things that you need to spend on, a list of your expenses. Number four, rule, never spend more than what you earn. Right. So if you realize that your expenses are greater than your income, there are 2 things that you can do. number one, you either increase on your income, or number two, you either reduce on your expenses. And reducing on the expenses is the easier option that people have to do. And also people must know, number five, you must be able to save. That's a rule while you are budgeting. Genesis chapter 41 from verses 33 to 38 is a story about Joseph. And in there we find in verse 34 where Joseph said, and let Pharaoh take a fifth of the produce of Egypt during the 7 years of plenty, because the 7 years of famine are going to come. So the principle is, in your budgeting, you must save at least 20% of your net income. So when we begin to spend on a monthly basis, number 6, we must be able to evaluate how we have spent the money. Because when we carry out that evaluation, then we can be able to take corrective action on a monthly basis before things get out of hand.
Wow. Thank you so much for your wise words and some good financial principles. God bless you.
God bless you too.